All right, let's get to this bread and butter that I wanted to chat about today. So how do you describe financial counselling to someone who's never heard of it?
Very importantly, the first thing I'll say right up front, it's a free service.
Right.
And it's designed to help people manage their living expenses, their debts, where it's appropriate, avoid potential legal action. And really what we're aiming to do is get them back on track, especially when they're unsure what to do. Now, our services, we can provide information around related services. So it might be a case of, look, this is really a legal matter. Go and speak to these community legal services, for example. We can give those contact details and say these are the most appropriate legal community services. It might be accounting services. We also provide information around concessions and grants that are available for people, especially around utilities. A lot of people are aware of different concessions that are available to them, but what they're not aware of is all the different types of grants that are available to them, so that if they're unable to meet their electricity bill, their gas bill, there is usually some sort of additional assistance available. So we know about those grants and we can guide those people to those different grants and how to apply. And if appropriate, we can even step in and submit the applications on their behalf. We're well trained in consumer credit law. We're well trained in bankruptcy law. And this can be a real minefield for many of our clients, and they're just unsure what to do. Do they have any rights? What are their obligations? So we can certainly guide them around consumer credit law. We can guide them around the bankruptcy law. We can tell them about the consequences of bankruptcy. And there's a lot of misconceptions around bankruptcy as well. So we can guide them, what is right and what is wrong around bankruptcy. Now, pointing out that we try to avoid bankruptcy as well. We tend to consider much of more of a last resort. So it's certainly not our go-to strategy. We're also well trained in credit reporting and what's required for creditors to make credit reports, make default reports on credit reporting, how to get the credit reports repaired. So we can talk to people about that, and can they get it fixed? If so, how do they go about that? If there's a notation on their credit report and it's in error, we can guide them as to how to get that rectified. Financial abuse is a big one, unfortunately. We can talk to our clients and say, okay, well, yes, this is a clear case of financial abuse. How do we resolve that? And we can often work with creditors either advocating for our clients, or we can guide them so they can self-advocate for their creditors to get things back on track. We're also really good at complaint resolution, particularly from a credit perspective. We've got really, really good relationships with the major banks and lots of creditors right across the country. We know what those creditors are looking for, or those service providers are looking for generally, and we can typically come up with some sort of complaint resolution on behalf of our clients. And if we can't do that, then we know about the different sorts of ombudsman services that are out there. We can tell our clients, okay, these are services that are available to you. They can provide mediation and come to some sort of middle ground if that's appropriate for our clients. Or if our client hasn't done anything wrong whatsoever and it's actually the service provider or the creditor that's stepped out of line, then we can get a decision in our client's favour as well. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other things in the financial.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you repair kitchen sinks at all? You've bloody done everything else. Hey, question. You said that it's a free service, so there's no cost to the consumer. Okay, a couple of things there. Is that a blanket? Is there some Hippocratic oath? If you're a financial counsellor in Australia, you do not charge. Could I become one tomorrow and as part of that, I do not charge people, or is it just UnitingWA that is a free service?
So many of your listeners will be aware that as a financial advisor, for example, or any sort of credit provider, you need a license, a financial services license through ASIC. Financial counselling services have an exemption. We don't need that financial services license to operate, but there are a number of conditions to that exemption. And the big one, to answer your question, is we cannot charge a fee. It's as simple as that.
So, okay, that's cool. So that's the first kind of question. And then would you say first, and this is where, because I don't know, it's probably a really bad thing, but in my 8 years of podcasting, I've actually never had a financial counsellor on the podcast and talk to them. because it's just most of our audience do not have that need. We see it, but because it is Anti-Poverty Week, and I really did want to actually have this conversation, and I'm glad that you guys reached out. But are you, with the training, I guess I'm saying, like, do you go through counselling school and learn general counselling concepts like, oh, this is what happens if a spouse and their partner and a husband and wife are fighting, bread and butter counselling stuff, and this is trauma counselling and all this stuff, and then you specialise in financial counselling? Or is it all just money stuff and then you tack on the soft counselling skills?
So to become a financial counsellor, we do need to actually complete a financial counselling diploma. As far as the background leading up to that, it could be many of my colleagues come from a social services support background. There's a lot of us that have a financial background. I'm a former banker, insurance expert. I've been in the insurance and finance industry since the early 80s.
Right.
So there's that sort of background, but just because I have a financial background doesn't make me any better than another financial counsellor who comes from a social support services background, because they've got a completely different skill set altogether. We're really good because there's no fees involved. We're really good in collaborating with each other, and there's all different sorts of agencies out there. You know, we've been talking about UnitingWA, but of course there's all sorts of agencies that provide financial counselling services, and we're not in competition with each other. So we're regularly sharing resources, information with each other, so that we can get the best outcomes for our clients.
So what's the actual difference between a financial counsellor and a financial advisor?
So as I said, up front, it's free. That's a big one. It's independent. We're not tied to an organisation. We're not tied to a superannuation fund, a bank, an insurance company. People often will ask us, well, who's the best superannuation provider that I need to go to? Who's the best home loan provider? We don't give that sort of advice because we're fiercely independent, because we want to make sure there's never any influence on the information that we provide to our clients. That's a big one as well. Again, if I haven't mentioned already, it's free. A big one is that...
Oh, actually, quick question. How
Yes.
much is it to see a financial counsellor?
I think I should have mentioned that before. It's free.
Yeah, you did
yes.
mention that, actually, yeah.
A big thing that needs to be remembered by any financial counselling client is that, and this is a big distinction between financial counselling and financial advice, is that we're not able to provide personal financial advice. And by that, I mean, we'll still look at our clients' circumstances, what's brought them to a financial counsellor, what is it they're trying to achieve. That's always a big one and should be a part of any financial counselling discussion. Where does our client want to end up at? But instead of us as financial counselling saying, okay, well, based on what it is you're trying to achieve, based on your circumstances, you need to do X, Y, and Z, we'll actually talk them through their options, describe that. If it's not self-evident, we'll talk them through the advantages and the disadvantages of those options. We'll encourage them to ask questions around so they've got a good understanding, because ultimately they need to make those decisions themselves. But we'll hold their hand through that process so that they can reasonably comfortably at the back end of it make decisions that are appropriate for themselves. The other things we can't do is we can't give investment advice, we can't give superannuation or insurance advice, and we can give factual advice around those products and those services, but we can't say, look, these are the most appropriate product services for you. In that case, then one of our roles would be, hey, if you want personal information around that, we recommend you go and speak to a financial advisor. The big thing is for us, and where financial advisors an area that they don't typically play in, is around debt management. That's our bread and butter, and just our clients' guidance on managing their day-to-day living expenses.
Okay, question. I'll say it this way: there could be a family or an individual. We'll just call it a family, and the household income is 250 or 300 grand. Okay, and they are financially stressed. They're living week on week, blah blah blah, there could be another family where the household income could be literally just welfare benefits, call it 30 grand a year. Both present the same problems. Living week on week, don't feel like they're getting ahead, can't, blah, blah, blah. Both of them have completely separate situations. Is there an income cutoff? Like, it's free to see a financial counsellor, but is there a thing where it's like, well, if you actually earn over 80 grand a year or above that median income or the poverty line, don't come and see us?
With some agencies, with some financial counselling agencies, they do have income thresholds where if you're above that threshold, they won't provide a financial counselling services. In some agencies, they might have a geographical restriction. So if you're not within this council area or this electorate,
postcode or whatever,
this postcode, then unfortunately they can't provide the services. And that all comes down to funding restrictions, all that sort of stuff. But there's a lot out there that don't have income thresholds, that don't have geographical restrictions. For example, us at UnitingWA, our only geographical restriction is that you need to be a resident of WA. We don't have income thresholds. And just because somebody might be earning $250,000 a year as if their household income, as you mentioned, they still might have financial stress because they're unsure of how to manage their money. There might be a change in their circumstances where, they might have been on $350,000 a week before. Something's happened, big income reduction. And of course, they've got debt that was associated with that larger income, and they're not quite sure what the next steps might be. They might know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but in the meantime, their creditors are pressing them to address their arrears or sell their assets or whatever the case might be. And we can step in and say, look, those solutions, they're a possible outcome, but have you considered A, B, and C? And we can guide them in that respect as well. Yeah. So there's no reason why we can't talk to the people on the higher incomes if they're in financial stress and are unsure what to do. And similarly, we talk on a regular basis to people on the lower end of the spectrum that are just having trouble just in this cost of living crisis, trying to make ends meet.
So your last three clients that you've had this week, tell us some type of financial challenges that you've helped them through.
Yeah, common ones that we see, it might be just something really, really simple. They're restricted to their Centrelink income and they're just having difficulty paying their power bill, their gas bill, their phone bill. And these days, it's largely because of a surge in the rental costs. So we're seeing that on a very regular basis. Very often, in fact, I did have one this week. They've lost their job due to illness, and it's going to be some months before they're able to get back on track and get back into the workforce. There's also regular ones where we see a relationship breakdown where clients are now actually trying to survive on a single income. There's also a small number of financial counsellors that have accreditation to work with small business clients as well. And what we're seeing with our small business clients on a very regular basis is just assistance in managing their ATO debt. There's a lot of small businesses coming out of the COVID crisis carrying ATO debt, and they're unsure what to do. The ATO are really pressing them for payment of those debts, and we can work with the ATO in association with our clients and say, okay, well, let's come to a suitable arrangement so that the debt can be arranged and they can hopefully continue on with their small business.
And why do you think people wait maybe a year or more before reaching out?
Yeah, and this is a big one. A lot of people do wait, and I'd say there's a few reasons for that. Probably one of the biggest ones is quite simply a lack of awareness. I mentioned earlier that I've been in the insurance and banking industry since the early 80s. And honestly, I didn't know I was about financial counselling until about 10 years ago. A lot of bankers don't know. You talk to your branch banking staff, they don't know about financial counsellors. So when you've got people that are prominent in the finance industry, such as just your local banker, and don't know about financial counselling, how is it that the general public can possibly know about it as well? And unfortunately, we just don't have the funding available to us to go and advertise our services. So that's a big one, just a lack of awareness. Another big one is shame. When people are unable to manage their money, there is a big sense of shame, and that's a really hard one to overcome. There's also the common Aussie approach is, oh, she'll be right, mate, or the stick their head in the sand approach. Men especially, guys, you need to stop it. There's nothing wrong about asking for help.
Yeah, and maybe stop gambling.
Sorry, mate?
And maybe stop gambling.
Yes, yeah, that's a big one, especially with the rise of gambling apps. It's well hidden.
Disgusting.
Yes, and it's really, really, I can get a lot of my clients to open up about a lot of their circumstances, but there is still a real stigma about gambling and voicing that to people.
Yeah, and I know I said it flippantly, like stop gambling, like it can be, addiction is an illness, and that can manifest in different ways. Hey, it's Glenn here. Thank you so much for watching today's video. You made it to the end. Can I ask a favor? Can you hit that like button and maybe hit subscribe if you want to get notified when we release further videos just like this one, whether you watch the Money, Money, Money podcast or Retire Right. And remember, if you want to learn more about investing, I've got an investing book, The Quick Start Guide to Investing, and there's a link in the description to get your hands on a copy. Thank you so much. Bye.